What's going on, everybody? It's been a minute. I'm out here again in the woods, except this time it's not all sad and it's not storming, at least not yet. It's pretty hot. Came out here on the trail. As you can see, I don't know, you can see if I'm glossy or not, but it's pretty hot, like I said. Yeah, came out here. It's been a pretty long walk today. Probably a few miles, maybe 5, something like that. But anyway, wanted to talk about why and how did I become a nature worshiper. Now, we're using the nature worship moniker just to simplify things. That can mean a lot of things. Many different people of different religions and cultures can, I guess in different ways, worship or appreciate nature, right? But of course it differs. And even in some religions and in some cultures, they demonize many aspects of nature. And let me clarify also that when I say nature worshiper, I don't mean someone that uses appeal to nature, conversation points, saying that, oh, it's natural, so that's how we got to do it. Oh, that's not what I'm talking about neither. But anyway, yeah, I'll just go ahead and kind of tell, I guess my journey or my story in becoming, the nature worshiper, right? And basically, to start it off, let's start a little bit before my conception. So, my family comes from a place where most people are Christian or Catholic or some denomination of those, as do many people across the world, right? Not very unique, not very special, right? My father, prior to my conception, was interested in other beliefs, and used to, I would say, as far as I know, was just interested in some of the beliefs and practices of like West African origin, but anyway, when I was conceived and my parents decided to raise me, obviously, they had me baptized and they decided to raise me Christian, and Catholic to be precise. And I was raised Catholic, and ever since, my whole life, honestly, I always battled with accepting certain things that were told to me, that were in the scriptures and all that. But nonetheless, I was always someone that revered God, that feared God. I had innate fear, of going to hell. I didn't want to go to hell. I was terrified. And any thought that I had that, was a sin or anything, I would, sometimes I would cry about it. Or, when I'm in the shower, I would like beg and beg and beg for forgiveness, crying in the shower, like I was so terrified of everything. And I was basically, convinced that I was just a terrible person from the jump. Now, to the outside person, I was a pretty good child, pretty well-mannered, pretty calm. I was very obedient to my parents. And some of those, to a greater extent, those things are good values to have, good things to exhibit as a child, to a certain extent. And yeah, but nonetheless, that came with some detractors. I didn't feel comfortable speaking up for myself. I didn't feel comfortable defending myself. I didn't feel comfortable voicing my own opinion on many things, and growing up, as I continued to learn more about my heritage and my ancestry, I started to realize that some things just didn't seem right. So, quick little story here, but my indigenous ancestors the reasoning for which the Spanish crown decided to eradicate them, there's no real other good way to put it, was because they weren't Catholic and they did not have an interest really in conversion at first. Of course, once the raping and killing and pillaging and all that wonderful stuff happens, you're gonna bend the knee, But anyway, so I had questions, because as far as I understood, and as far as most people I ever spoke to, understood, was that my tribe, my ancestors, they were a relatively peaceful group of people in comparison to other tribes of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico area. So I couldn't understand how a relatively peaceful group of people that really only had major conflict with another tribe of their same lineage, and had an ongoing war with that tribe, but nonetheless, kind of stayed to themselves for the majority of their existence, aside from trading, of course. But that's a whole nother video. I'm making another video about that. But these were supposedly a good people. They called themselves a good people, and this is what they told the Spaniards. We are the good ones. Those guys over there are the crazy bastards, but we're the good ones, And Spaniards took advantage of kindness. They took advantage of, the gifts that they would receive, the gold and, all of those things, right? And yeah, none of that was good enough. None of their values were good enough because they were predominantly naked savages. So that kind of justifies a lot of what the Spanish believed, was demonic, So, they worship nature and they have idols and they're naked most of the time, but they're pretty peaceful and they treat us pretty well, but none of that matters because they're primitive savages. So anyway, how could you justify then the eradication of said group simply based off of a religious comprehension, religious difference, right? And I would start asking these questions at a very young age. People never really had sufficient answers for me. It was usually well, this is how God intended it for it to be. That's just how it is. And this is what it says in the Bible. So if you don't believe in Jesus, then you're going to hell or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that never really made sense to me. But I digress. I continued growing up in my Catholic Christian upbringing, and I read a lot. I actually read the Bible twice, Old and New Testament. Once in middle school, nearing the end of 7th grade, the beginning of 8th grade, I read the entire thing from Genesis to Revelation. And then again, my freshman year of high school, over the summer, I read the Bible again. And yeah, I can see some of the value, again, in the Bible. I'm not going to say it's completely without any value. However, is it something so novel, so amazing, blow my mind? Oh my gosh, wow. I never could believe a human being could write this. Like, no. It's very, well put together, I could say. But anyone that knows, and as I came to learn later on in life, is that many books were taken out of the Bible and, were supposedly originally in there. Not only that, but you have to take into consideration, the Bible has been translated over 17 different languages over thousands of years, and they pick and choose what books go in, and each denomination takes out this book, takes out this sentence and this chapter, and blah blah blah, and it's just like a lot of editing going on with this book. Not to mention, it's not in the original verbiage or the original language, so therefore, how much of it is truly how it was intended to be. So anyway, around the time that I was in the middle of high school, I started to realize I should say middle school. In middle school, actually, I started to realize around the time, actually, I was reading the Bible. I started to realize that this was just there's a lot of very misleading and contradicting things in the Bible, and some things seemed to point in the direction of, at least for me at the time, that I started to believe that, we were in the book of Revelation, and that the world is going to come to an end, and all these things, right? And a lot of people today believe this same thing. And the book of Revelation is up to interpretation to many different outcomes. I mean, who knows? Maybe yeah, maybe not. Who knows what this monster means, or what the plagues actually are. There's so many interpretations and ways to look at that. But nonetheless, so basically in middle school, I started looking into Revelation a lot, and I started getting into Rastafarianism. And I liked Rastafarianism. It's very interesting, just the conception of it. I would say that Rastafarianism doesn't have a lot of strong points in its foundation as far as literature and all that goes. However, I did appreciate the message of people of the African diaspora to kind of look back at their history and have an appreciation for their roots and all of that stuff. And for those of you that don't know, I will also make a dedicated video about this, is that I am of mixed heritage, clearly. I mean, maybe not clearly to some, but I'm of mixed heritage. And I haven't really dissected this, but maybe in a future video. But that spoke volumes to me. So yeah, I read into that for a bit, but I was in middle school. There wasn't I didn't have like a car or something to go meet like a Rastafarian congregation or anything like that. And at the time I was living in Hawaii, so I don't think that would have been super likely. Maybe, I don't know. But nonetheless, whatever, that kind of fell apart. I kept doing my thing, reading and all that. And eventually, at the end of middle school, I did a project on Marcus Garvey. And Garvey was a Catholic himself. However, he inspired a lot of the origins or the first steps in the Pan-African movement, and the birth of Rastafarianism, the birth of other things like the Muslim sects, the Moors, the Nation of Islam, and all of that, right? So I started looking into some of these things, and once I reached about junior year, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X and decided that I was going to start to read the Quran and try and understand Islam. And what I came to find out is that Islam has a predominant history in West Africa over the past few hundred years. And most of Africa became Muslim due to the Arab caliphates and their slavery. But nonetheless, Islam brought a lot of wealth, monetary wealth, gold, and a lot of science and things like that to West Africa and many parts of Africa. Not to say that these places didn't have science and all that. I'm saying as far as we understand it today, right? Like the commercial understanding of science and money, right? So, I started to have respect for the fact that Africans took this religion and, basically used it to thrive in this system, that was created around this religion. At least in some parts of Africa. But nonetheless, I started to gain a lot of interest in Islam. I saw that basically the Christians in the West here in the United States were kind of lackluster, not really practicing their stuff like they say they should, or at least how it's written in their very own book. They're eating things they're technically not supposed to. They're saying things they shouldn't say, they are wearing things they shouldn't wear. This is all according to the doctrine, right? So yeah, I was like, you know what? Okay, well, at least these guys over here, they seem to like follow at least the vast majority of what they say. And of course, you're gonna see that some of them don't, clearly. But that caught my interest, I would say. And then once that caught my interest, I decided to become, Malcolm X. Essentially, I became so enveloped in learning about Islam. And, I started to watch a million lectures and read the Quran and all of that. And again, just like the Bible and the Old Testament, there's some pretty good information and stuff like that. However, I would say that the Quran, if you're not reading it in Arabic, is very cryptic, and you have to have some kind of interpreter, really, if you want to understand it well. So I had to learn some Arabic and try to, go to mosque a lot and try to, understand it from a pure sense, at least how it's intended to be understood. So anyway, once I got out of high school, I basically had some troubles, had my first girlfriend and all of that other stuff, and that didn't end well for me, and that sent me on a religious journey 2.0. So, I felt I was in a very low place. In order to get back up, I was going to have to really commit to my relationship with God, or my relationship with Allah, right? So, that's what I did. I became an Orthodox Muslim. I was going to mosque. I was reading the Quran, all of that stuff. I was fasting for Ramadan, all of that. And basically, I'm gonna take a seat right here. But basically, so what happened after that was that I eventually was talked into joining the Nation of Islam. And I was in the Nation of Islam for almost a year and a half. And to an extent, the Nation of Islam provided me some good context for certain things in the Quran that I didn't really understand too well. I was provided some of that context. It's also provided some good information. However, I was also provided some incorrect information. And what I guess got me into that in depth was that I was promised that I was allowed to ask whatever question I wanted, right? That I was going to get an answer. Unlike the church, the church was always going to say, oh, God wanted it that way. That's just how it is. That's what's in the Bible, right? So at first, this statement, this promise was true. I was getting answers for pretty much most of the questions I had that the Christian church couldn't provide me with. Muslims, Orthodox, and in the Nation of Islam provided me a lot of those answers, or at least sufficient enough answers, I guess, even though some of them, like I said already, some of them was a little iffy. I do believe some of them to clearly be false. But nonetheless, so essentially what had happened then was that I got to another point where two things happened. One, I got to a point where I started to receive the same answer as the Christian church. Oh, you cannot rely on your own understanding. This is above your own understanding. Only Allah knows. God is the only one that understands. You don't understand. So you have to try to understand like God says to understand. And it ends up happening the same way as it was, right? So that was one. Two, after being there for a while, I realized, I was young of age. I was maybe 20, 21, maybe. I'm not that much older now, but still. 23, but I turned 24 now. But anyway, continuing the journey. So, I started to realize that it was very controlling of many aspects of life. Just too much OD, in my opinion. And that's fair, if you're someone that follows the dean and all of that, then congratulations, you do your thing. For me, I felt that it was too much. Getting dirty, being barefoot like I am now, that's like not godly, whatever that means, or I don't know, I can't even like hug or kiss a girl that I am interested in and have spent significant time with and all of that, or I can't even have a conversation with a girl unless we're in the mosque and it's facilitated by two other people. Just very controlling, essentially. So anyway, once I had essentially broken out of that, I basically again realized that I have barked up this tree of these traditional Abrahamic religions my whole life, trying to understand. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I am a terrible person. Maybe I am, a demon or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I am all these terrible things, and maybe I'm doing everything wrong. Even though everyone seems to look at me and think that I'm great and I'm wonderful, maybe I am just terrible and God hates me and all this stuff, right? But then I realized, I started to look at the beliefs of my ancestors. All of them. All of them. My Native American ancestors, my African ancestors, my even European ancestors. And they all had one thing in common, and that was that they were nature-worshiping people. Not all in the exact same way. However, they all appreciated not only the Creator, but also all the great aspects of nature and the power that those aspects have, and deserve to be appreciated. And that was consistent across the board. And then I started to think, So and I'm a historical person. I love history. So I started to think, let me see how consistent I can find this to be across the world. And when you look at cultures from all throughout history, pre-Christian, pre-Islamic, they all have a similar understanding of their reverence toward nature and appreciation for nature. And this was never like it didn't come out of a bad place. This was a relationship developed with nature, not a domination, not a full-on subservience per se. We work in tandem with nature, and therefore we respect and we honor and we appreciate nature, and we worship nature. And we understand that there is a creator. We understand that there is great evil. We understand that there is, powerful forces, not just in the natural world, but in the cosmos. So if you really want to, you could say like these cultures were nature and cosmic worshiping groups. But nonetheless, basically, reading all this and looking into all these different cultures and their understanding of the natural world and the part we play in it and all of that, and also the understanding of the complexity of the human. We are not meant to all share the same experiences. We're not meant to all live the same exact life. We're not all meant to think the exact same. We should aim to have, some semblance of connectivity, obviously, so that we can work things out between groups of people and each other. But we are not meant to be the exact same. And these religions understood this. This is why each aspect of nature has a personality. This is why each, entity of nature has, a way of being, whether that's destructive, whether that's creative, whether that is providing life, whether that's taking away life. It's all accepted. It's all accepted. So therefore, you don't have a negative connotation of even the worst things that happen, because they serve a purpose in your life, whether you understand it in the moment or not. And you have to respect it to an extent. So yeah, that helped me come to peace with myself, and has helped a lot of people come to peace with themselves. Many of my friends that I know that also grew up in traditional religions, and some of them didn't even read a fraction of what I've read, of the traditional books and traditional religions. And I'm not saying that I'm Mr. Super scripture guy, but, like I said, I have read the books from cover to cover. I have multiple times, and I've tried to fully understand, right? But yeah. Nonetheless, that has been basically a full circle, That's how I see it, is that my ancestors were slowly stripped away of their original beliefs, of their beliefs that allowed them to live a life of, to live a life where they had an active relationship with the world around them, and to live freely to an extent. Obviously, every culture, every civilization has their laws, has their rules, but there was a certain understanding of respect for nature, respect for people in your community, respect for the environment that you live in, and everything that you use, everything that you take from the earth and that you give back to the earth. This was all well understood, and all of that was slowly taken away from my ancestors. So I guess you could say originally beginning, and we don't really know, where we all fully come from, but for my estimate, right, I would say that Europeans were Christianized first via the Roman Empire. They Christianized most of the Germanic tribes and most of Europe. So yeah, therefore my European ancestors were stripped of that understanding first. Then came the Africans, stripped away through Islam predominantly. And then my American Indian, Native American ancestors, who were stripped of that via the Catholic Spaniards. But nonetheless, let me also say that I don't believe that we need to go back to trying to sacrifice, people and stuff to sun gods and all of that. I don't agree with that. And I think that, again, some of the things that came along with these traditional, at least what we perceive as traditional now, these traditional Abrahamic religions do serve some sort of purpose. But the fact of the matter is that we still need the old knowledge. We still need the old knowledge of the gods, lowercase g, lowercase g gods, because there's always, or more often than not, there is a creator still. And, there's an all-father, all-mother, someone that is in charge of these other forces that we respect and that we value. So, yeah. That's what I got today. It's a little serious. I try to make it a little entertaining. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know, what do you think about your beliefs? What is your journey like? What is your story like? And you know, what events in your life have led you to come to maybe a similar conclusion, or perhaps an opposite conclusion. Please let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.